Welcome everybody. We welcome you to the webcast on the introduction of UAE Federal Corporate Tax that will be implemented in 2023. So this will be an introductory webcast that will give you all the knowledge up to date, and we expect a lot of changes in futures that we will also conduct the similar webcast to keep you updated. Yeah, we will start with the introduction of UAE corporate tax. Wherever we will mention CT, it means corporate tax of UAE. We will see the effective date, we will see the scope, and we will see who will be the administrator of corporate tax. On 8th October 2021, UAE, among other 137 countries, agreed that they will implement corporate tax that will be two-pillar approach. We will see what is two-pillar approach. And on 31st January recently 2022, UAE Ministry of Finance announced the introduction of federal tax in the UAE. Accordingly, UAE corporate tax will be effective for the financial period starting on or after 1st June 2023. So this date is very important, and we will see if your financial year is not ending with 1st June, then from which period it will start. The UAE corporate tax regime will be based on international best practices with a low or minimum applicable burden on the businesses. We will see the tax rates in certain cases up to a certain amount, it's zero rated, then 9%. We will see the implication, but it's just a introduction. And we expect that further informations will be released by mid of 2020 by the Ministry of Finance and Federal Tax Authority. As we said, the effective date will be this 1st June 2023. So it's important, if your tax period is starting from 1st June 1st June means it will be applicable from 1st June 2023 onward. Suppose if your period is 31st December, it will not be applicable till 31st December 2023. It will be applicable on your entity from 1st January 2024. This is important for all the participants to take a note. If your year end is 31st December, it means up to 31st December 2023, no tax will be applicable on your entity. It will start 1st January 2024. So what will be the tax treatment of the 7 month that will be between 1st June 2023 and 31st December 2023? There will be no tax treatment, means it will not be under the corporate tax of UAE. It will start 1st January 2024. This was a main point, a main focus point, that's why I'm emphasizing time and again. Scope is all the Emirates, all the entities that are in all the Emirates, 7 Emirates, it will be applicable. It will be applicable on all the businesses and commercial activities alike. It means if it might be applicable on individuals in certain circumstances, and we will see that circumstances as well. But for businesses, it will be applicable on all businesses. Like UAE VAT law, there are certain exemptions, like if you meet the threshold of 375, then it's applicable. If it's below that one, it's not applicable on you. But here in this case, there is no such exemptions. It will be applicable on all the businesses and commercial activities. Means if you have a zero income, still it will be applicable for your businesses and commercial activities. There is one exception for this businesses and activities. What is that? That is extraction of natural resources. If you are doing that businesses or commercial activity, the corporate tax will not be applicable for that one. That relates to only extraction. But if you are trading of the natural resources, it will be applicable on you. Another important point, there are certain activities that will be considered a deemed business activities, even performed by individuals, and they have to register for that one. We will see certain examples of that one, but the major guidelines and regulations will be issued by the Ministry of Finance and Federal Tax Authority. Corporate tax administrations, the current UAE VAT is being administered by the Federal Tax Authority, that is called FTA. Corporate tax will also be monitored by the Federal Tax Authority, FTA, and even they have made certain changes in their website. I will suggest to at least go to one time to their website to see the certain changes, and all the future announcements and for the regulations and the new enactment will be there. Here is another point relating to multilateral agreements or bilateral agreements with international trade or different countries. It will not be FTA who will be handling that one. It will be Ministry of Finance. So for tax treaty purposes, you might have to contact with Ministry of Finance, or you might have to see the website of Ministry of Finance for tax treaty purposes. But for other purpose, Federal Tax Authority will be wholly solely responsible for the administration. Businesses in free zones, a very important, and a lot of questions are being raised on this topic before the enactment of the corporate tax law. Free zone businesses will be within the scope of UAE corporate tax. There is no exception for any free zones. When we are saying that there is no exceptions, it means DIFC and Abu Dhabi global market will also fall under this regime. We are receiving certain questions. We will answer those ones by the end of the sessions. I hope most of your questions will be cleared during this webcast. If there will be some unanswered questions, we will be here and we will answer all of your questions. Coming to the businesses in free zones, so all the free zone businesses will be within the scope of UAE VAT, UAE corporate tax. It means they have to register and they have to file a corporate tax return. The other questions, will they be levied on the same rates or there will be a different rates? There will be a different rates. We can call it a corporate tax holiday or zero taxation, provided that two conditions are met. Number one, they meet all the regulatory requirements, and number two, they do not conduct businesses in mainland. The second point is very clear. If they do not conduct a business in the mainland, they will fall under that category. But what are all the regulatory requirements? We are still waiting for that one, and hopefully they will mention what are those requirements that the companies have to comply in order to get corporate tax holiday or 0% taxations. I will summarize this one. Free zone businesses, corporate tax is applicable on all the free zones, on all the entities. They have to register and they have to file a VAT corporate tax returns. There will be a tax holiday or zero taxations provided that they meet all the regulatory requirements and they do not conduct a business in mainland. This was a first part, introductory part. Now we will see what is a tax base, means on which tax will be levied. Are there some exceptions? What will be the tax rate? If there will be some tax losses, what will be their treatment? So we'll see four important topics in this one. Corporate tax will be payable on the accounting net profit. That will be generally accepted by the UAE. They have not mentioned it should be based on IFRS, US generally accepted accounting principles, but we assume it will be acceptable by as prepared by IFRS and US GAAP. Plus, there will be some adjustment and exceptions like bad debts, different rate in depreciations, and all those things. But here is another important point that, and many people called me and they asked the question whether cash-based accounting will be acceptable or not. Cash-based accounting will not be acceptable in any case, because I have seen tax laws of many jurisdictions and all are like accepting IFRS or US GAAP or their own country law. They are not accepting cash-based accounting. Tax losses will also be carried forward for the adjustment of future tax periods. Here are two important points. If you have a tax losses before the implementation of the corporate tax, whether you will be allowed to adjust those losses or not, it's still debatable. Still, we have to wait for the decision of the FTA. The second point, the tax losses will be carried for how much periods? In certain countries, these are carried forward for an indefinite period. In certain countries, in most of the countries, we can say these are carried forward for a 5 tax periods. Here, for both of the answers of the both of the questions, we are not able to answer right now, but after the regulations are out, we will be in a position to give answer of this tax losses. But you should bear in mind the tax losses can be carried forward to adjust for the future tax periods. I will summarize. Tax base means on which tax will be levied will be accounting net profit adjustable by certain adjustment. Tax losses will be carried forward. There are some exemptions. What are those? Capital gains and dividends earned from qualifying shareholdings. I was doing a research if we can identify what does mean by qualifying shareholdings, and I was not able to find that one. It means Ministry of Finance or Federal Tax Authority will mention certain conditions. What are the qualifying shareholdings? Normally, in other countries, 5 to 10% shareholding is considered a qualifying shareholdings. But in UAE, this is just an announcement, and we are not able to identify whether up to 5% or 10% will be considered as a qualifying shareholding. But for the time being, you can say capital gains and dividends will not be considered as under the corporate tax, means these will be exempt. Then qualifying intergroup transactions and restructuring cost. If there will be, we will see a group corporate taxation as well, and this transactions will be elaborated more there. But here we can say if they qualify for intergroup transactions, they will not be fall under that category. Then here is another very good point and good for the businesses as well. What is that? Domestic and cross-border payments of interest, dividend, royalties, and other payments will not attract a withholding tax in the UAE. So means you need not to worry, whatever the payments are, either locally or internationally, you need not to go through in detail whether what will be the withholding tax. These are excluded from the withholding tax. Foreign tax credits will be available for the incomes, because if you have a subsidiary, if you have a branch office that might have to pay taxes on their businesses, on their profits, so that tax credit you can avail. What will be the treatment? Basically, that will not be deducted from your profit. That will your tax calculations will be done, and these tax credits will be deducted, and the remaining amount you will pay to FTA. I hope it's clear. If you have any questions, we will be more than happy to answer that ones. Tax rates, very important. What will be the tax rates? 0% for taxable income up to 375. Means if you have an income up to 375, zero rate will be applicable on you. But as I said, you have to register for corporate tax. Second, you have to file annual tax returns. If your profits are more than that, adjustable profits are more than 375, then first this 375 will be deducted. Whatever remaining profits will be, 9% of that profit will be considered a taxable tax on that one. But here is another important point, that is for a large organizations, multi organizations, and we have said that pillar 2. Basically, pillar 2 means for small entities, you can reduce the tax, like certain cases 0 and certain cases 9. But for large organizations, you cannot reduce the tax. So it will be a minimum that is recommended by OECD. And minimum tax recommended by OECD is 15% across the globe. You cannot go for beyond that one. So for large national organizations, the tax rate will be different. And what is considered a pillar 2? Here I have mentioned the revenue. If their consolidated globe revenues are above 750 million euro, then tax rate will be different for your entity and you will fall under pillar 2. I will summarize this one. The tax rate will be 0 for the taxable income, adjustable taxable income up to 375,000 dirhams. Above income from this 375, 9% will be applicable. For large multinational organizations, tax rate will be different, and we expect a minimum of 15% will be there. Tax losses, as earlier discussed, if there will be some tax losses, that will be adjustable for the future profits. But again, to the answer of those two questions, we are expecting from the authorities that will be cleared along with the enactment. Like the losses before the enactment of the law will be adjustable or not. The second, how many years we can carry forward the tax losses. Next slides, next group, tax group and intercompany transactions, withholding tax and foreign tax credits, and transfer pricing. Tax group and intercompany transactions, the press released by the Ministry of Finance and frequently asked questions mentions that a UAE companies can make a group provided that certain conditions are met. Right now, they have not described the conditions, but they have mentioned that if certain conditions are met, that relates to shareholding, that relates to some other conditions. But we are expecting that there will be certain shareholding conditions based on that one. In certain countries, you can make a group if your shareholding is more than 50%. In certain countries, you cannot make a group until and unless your shareholding is more than 90%. And in some countries, it's 95% as well. A UAE tax group will only be required to file a single or consolidated tax return for the entire group. As we know, there are some companies, there are some groups who are registered as a group under VAT law. So same way you can register under corporate tax and you will file a single or consolidated VAT returns. Then the qualifying intergroup transactions will not be taxable, but you have to see the transfer pricing rules as well. My point of view, generally the ability to form a tax group fiscal year for certain purposes is subject to minimum ownership requirements. That ranges from 95% to 100%. It can be 50%. We expect the UAE corporate tax regime will also impose the similar conditions, like it can be 50%, it can be 51%, or it can be 90%. Withholding tax and foreign tax credits. There will be no withholding tax. That is a big relief for all of us. Taxable entities will be allowed to take a credits in their tax returns. Transfer pricing, as of now, there are no transfer pricing rules because tax is not applicable, but once the taxes are applicable for all the transactions with the related party, transfers rules will be applicable. That will be in the guideline of OECD, and we expect, as they mention in their frequently asked questions, that transfer pricing guidelines will be issued. Another important topic, individuals, freelancers, and investors, whether tax will be applicable on them or not. A lot of questions have been raised by our clients on this one, and we will see what will be the treatment of individuals, freelancers, and investors. Individuals, UAE corporate tax will not apply on individual salaries or other employment income. Big clap on that one. It can be received from private sector, it can be received from public sector, but there will be no income corporate tax or income tax on individual salaries. Then the investment in real estate by individuals. It's not the company. Investment in real estate by the individuals in their personal capacity will not attract corporate tax. But they have to assess whether they need to carry a license for that activity or not, because this will be a very subjective, and they have to thoroughly analyze their activities. If that falls under a personal capacity, it will not be applicable. If that does not fall under a personal capacity, they have to register. Individuals will not be subject to UAE corporate tax on dividends, capital gains, and other incomes earned from owning shares or other securities in their personal capacity. Interest and other income earned by individuals from banks, bank deposit, saving schemes will not be taxable. Freelancers, important, if they are getting an income of up to 375, corporate tax will not be applicable, but if their income exceeds 375, they have to pay the corporate tax. Another important point, whether freelancers have to register or not. If they do not meet this 375 threshold, whether they have to register or not, there is no clear answer. We will be waiting from the guideline from the ministry with this respect. But if their income will exceed 375, yes, they have to register and they have to file a corporate tax. But for the registered entities, they have to register under the corporate tax and they have to file a VAT return even in case of a zero income. Will a foreign company or individual be subject to UAE? If it's one-off transactions, they will not be. But if it's an ongoing or regular manner, yes, they will be required to register and have to file VAT returns. Sorry, corporate tax return. And we are basically familiar with the VAT, so we might be using some words for VAT as well, but apologize for that. Then we come to important topic, important point, tax compliance, and how we can assist you, how we can help you in that one. Here are key points. All the businesses will be required to register under UAE corporate tax. There is no exception. Only one corporate tax return will be required to file in each financial year, and they will let us know the time frame for that one. We are expecting that it will be 3 months after the end of the financial year. A good news, no provisional or advance filing will be there. Means only one and no provisional tax filing will be there. No corporate tax. The corporate tax returns will need to be filed electronically like we are filing in the case of VAT returns. If the businesses will not registered or they will not file the corporate tax returns, there might be some, of course, not might be, sure there will be penalties for the non-compliance. How we can assist you? Then thereafter we will take question answer sessions. We can help you in the assessment of corporate tax impact on your company, on your group. We can assist you in tax transition management. We can help you in tax management. In certain instances, it's called tax planning. That includes but not limited. We can advise you capital owner structures. We can advise you identifying tax blind spots. There are certain blind spots where you can get the benefits and you will not consider that one. Your taxes might increase significantly. We can advise you which will be the best structure, mainland or free zones. We can advise you related party transactions and on transfer pricing. We can support you in sustainable systems integrations. We can support you in documentations, filing a corporate tax, and we can help you in documentation of audit trail as well. We are here to train your employees and for the development of your staff as well. Thank you very much. I will summarize in just 2 to 3 minutes. Please bear with me. So if someone has joined lately, we can include him as well. Just 2 to 3 minutes, we will summarize that one. So UAE tax on 31st January 2020, they announced that there will be a corporate tax that will be implemented on or after 1st June 2023. Most of the businesses year end is 31st December. So in that case, it will be applicable on 1st January 2024. We are expecting that they will give or release informations by mid of 2020. Effective date already discussed. The scopes, all Emirates, all entities registered in Emirates, including free zones, including financial free zones, will be under the scope of that one. There is no exceptions. And certain businesses will be considered deemed businesses activities and they have to register as well. Only one exception is there if you are handling, if you are in the business of extraction of natural resources. Administration will be Federal Tax Authority. In case of a bilateral or multilateral arrangements, it will be Ministry of Finance. As earlier said, all free zones will be under this ones. They can avail a 0% taxations or tax holidays, provided that they meet two conditions. Number one, they meet all the regulatory requirements and they do not conduct businesses in mainland. Tax base will be accounting net profit. Tax losses will be carried forward. There are exemptions that are capital gains and dividends, qualifying intergroup transactions, domestic and cross-border transactions. No withholding tax will be there. You can avail foreign tax credits as well. Tax rates 0% for the income up to 375, above 9%. But if you are a multinational, as per the definition of Pillar 2 of OECD, means your group consolidated revenue is more than 750 million euro, there will be a different rate and we expect 15% rate on at a minimum on that one. Tax losses can be carried forward. Tax groups, you can make a tax group of your entities, provided that certain conditions are there. Then there will be a single or consolidated VAT return, corporate tax return for that one. There will be no withholding tax at all, and you can avail foreign tax credits as well. For intergroup transactions or intergroup restructuring, there will be transfer pricing rules that they mentioned in their frequently asked questions that will be that the Ministry of Finance will release soon. For individuals, there will be no corporate tax, but they have to see their activities whether that falls under deemed business activities or not. For that, they have to perform a thorough analysis of their activities. Freelancers, they will not be required they will not be under the corporate tax until and unless their income exceeds 375. Important questions, they have to register even if their income is less than 375. We don't expect they have to register, but we are waiting for the guideline, and Ministry of Finance or FTA will clarify on this one. Foreign company are individuals. If they have one-time transactions, casual transactions, it will not be applicable. Tax will not be applicable. But if they are doing ongoing and regular manners, tax will be applicable on that one. Tax compliance, again, 4-5 points, very important. You have to register, your company has to register. Even in case of a zero income individual, only one return at the end of the year will be filed. The period might be 3 months or 4 months, but they will let us know what will be the time frame for that one. No provisional or advance return will be there. Returns will be filed electronically, and there will be certain penalties for the non-compliance. And we can assist you. Now we will take the question answers from you, and then we will reply. Just please bear with us. And if there are unanswered questions, or there are some other questions that are in your mind, you have our email ID. Please send us your query on our registered email ID through your registered email, and we will try to respond you like as quicker as possible.